Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we're talking about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Walking Dead. So this episode centered mainly around the fact is that Eugene, we see Eugene's kind of side of the story with the Saviors. It kind of goes back to the mid-season finale, like timeline-wise. Obviously, it seems like it crosses over all of them, because even at one point during the episode, you have Negan being like, oh yeah, have Simon go check up on him, basically kind of do a search to see if Daryl is there or not. But it's very, basically it's getting Eugene the run of the lands a little bit. Kind of basically what Daryl got, but kind of from a different perspective. I mean, Daryl was kind of treated like a dog, because, Eugene's kind of scared at first, but then it's like, oh, I get a room, and she's the lady that's escorting him around, like, yo, so what do you want? Like, what do you mean? Like, what do you want to eat? I can give you anything. Like, really, anything. He's like, what do you want? He's like, lobster. She's like, what the hell? No, you don't get lobster. What the hell what do you think we are? He's like, oh, can I get this? She's like, yeah, sure. Do you want this or that? And he's like, that. Can I get chips? And he's like, she goes into this explanation about the chips, and she's like, I don't want it. And she's like, all right, I'll be back in 10 minutes. And it's like, because he's kind of treated as a little bit special, obviously because he made the ammo and everything, which he finally has like a, it's so interesting seeing like Eugene kind of getting accustomed to that world, because like he has it's a very different, like I said, it's very similar to the whole Daryl situation when he was kind of getting run on. But like I said, Daryl kind of came at it at a different point of view. It's like Negan took an interest in Daryl as a dog. It's like, oh, he could easily be one of my top people, but then Daryl was just kind of like I guess in Negan's eyes, he was too stubborn and not willing to be broken, like everyone else was. So. But with Eugene, it's a little bit different, because Eugene is a lot more afraid. I mean, because the word coward is kind of thrown around, and even Eugene himself is like, yeah, I'm a coward. Because the fact is, Eugene's never, like, even the whole circumstances about why he's here in the first place is because he lied to Rosita and Abraham, making it seem like, oh, he could stop this infection. He lied, tried to pretend. I mean, obviously, he's a very smart and intelligent dude. I mean, smarts and intelligence is what made him lie in the first place. But obviously, we already know this. But nevertheless, Negan's like, yo, normally the fact is that you would do that. The fact is that you hurt Lucille like this. Normally, I'd bash your damn brains in for that. You'd be getting a real close-up look of Lucille. But the fact of the matter is, you made this bullet kind of makes you kind of interested in me. So I want to know, like, are you really as smart as you claim to be? Even going and calling him Smarty Pants, and you have Eugene kind of trying to prove his worth. And like, oh, I'm this, I'm that. I got a PhD, yada 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 yada. And even at one point, it's like, oh, I can give you a suggestion about, at first he's scared, but then he kind of pushes his fear aside. I guess it's kind of similar, kind of going back to the Abraham situation of being like, hey, trying to prove his worth. And he's just like, oh no, this is how it works. Like, the fact is, you want to fix this whole Walker situation, you want to make it so they don't fall apart. It's basically use the smelter and basically coat them almost in armor so that their bodies are hardened and they can't be so they won't fall apart as easily, and also it kind of gives them protection, kind of similar to I forgot what his name was, the Walker that Rick had a fight last episode, kind of similar to having a helmet. And he's kind of like, oh yeah, do that, so protect its brain. So it's like, man, you don't have to give them that much help, do you? But once again, it's like, I mean, it's understandable. Like, hell, I'd be like, yo, if I'm smart, I'll be doing, like, the whole point of being smart is to know when to take the best opportunities to be useful. It's like, it's your instinctive, like, overall, like, for him, like, as a smart person, I mean, it's like any person, but especially if you're smart, you try to build different things in your mind of being like, this is the best way for me to survive. And it's like, with someone like Negan, who can literally fly off the handle for any reason, it's like, yeah, you best, kind of get with the programming. So it seems like that's what, Eugene is kind of doing. And so he had to kind of go up above and beyond and kind of give a suggestion to kind of prove how smart he is. And I love Negan's like, damn it, dude, that is smart. Not only is it smart, it's cool and badass. He's like, dude, you know what? For this, I can't just let you go around with just some pickles. How about you go have dinner with my wives? Now, sex is off the board, but he's like, the fact of the matter is, things are so much better when you have a beautiful woman by your side. He's like, and then you have Eugene be like, did you say wives? He's like, yes, I did. And it just, like I said, it's, once again, one of the things I love about Negan, especially being played by Jeffrey Dean Morgan, it's like it's so twisted to say, but I love him as a psychopath, because it's like he's almost like a little kid. He's just like, that makes so much fun. It's like, oh, you're telling me cool ways to make some badass stuff. It's just he responds like a kid. Like, it's like he's a kid in a full grown man's body, essentially. So it's so interesting. Then you also had the whole situation with the girls, his wives spending time with Eugene, and they're like, oh, it's like, oh, we can give. One of them was like, oh, I can give you a massage, and you have Eugene be like, no, and moves his legs away. He's like, I appreciate that and everything. He's like, I'm not stupid. That could lead to some dangerous areas that could lead to me getting my head bashed in. So there was also the situation like they start suggesting stuff because obviously he did some experiments where they're like, oh my God, you're so smart. You can do this. Because the moment he's like, oh, I can make a bomb. They're like, seriously? I was like, don't say that crap because it's like they don't want to be with Negan. They're going to suggest you make a bomb so you can kill Negan. Turned out to not be the case. It's just like, oh my God, we're having so much fun. Then later on, they're like, oh, you're super smart. Could you give some pills to Amber? Because, Amber's there and she's like, was super drunk and like having the worst time. Because, I don't think we've seen the dude that she like, I forgot what it was. Because what ended up happening is the fact is that because it happened a couple episodes back. It was, I think it was actually that Daryl episode, wasn't it? Was it? I think so. I think it was like, so that was like episode, what, 3 maybe? 3 or 4. But nevertheless, it was where that guy, the last guy we see get his face iron, previous to this episode, like I'll get to that soon enough, which is that guy and him and Amber had a thing. That's what happened there. It's like, that's where Negan was basically like, you're my property. So that dude got punished. I don't think we've seen him subsequently since then, but she's just kind of drunk. Obviously, anyone under those circumstances would be drunk. It's like you're forced to be. Well, the girls say a little bit different. I don't know how true it is. They're like, oh, we signed up to be with Negan. In Amber's case, she signed up with Negan because it's like the only way she can get something is like you can get stuff by working and stuff like that, but being with Negan has even more benefits. So, Negan probably already had an interest in her. So it's just like, her mom needs meds. So it's kind of like her mom wouldn't be able to work for herself. And I'm guessing Amber would have to work a very long time to give her mom the meds she needs. But being with Negan puts her at the top of the list already. So that's why I'm wondering, is it true what they were saying? Because obviously we ended up finding out they were manipulating and using Eugene because they're like, oh, because you make us some pills so we can make her go to sleep, so she can quote unquote, die peacefully because it's like she's tired of all this. Eventually, after everything is all said and done, you have Eugene finally figuring out. He's like, he's like, don't lie to me, ladies. Those pills, the reason why you asked for 2 is because you wanted, like, I don't know, maybe 1 really was for Amber. The moment they brought up, oh, because you have 2, I was like, that's suspicious right there. Maybe one of them is for Amber, but definitely one of them is for me. Which to be fair, is like, I don't think Amber would take one if they were going out of their way to kill Negan. And I wonder, is that really something Amber wanted to be a part of? Was she actually part of that discussion, or were those 2 just doing that on their own? But nevertheless, like, and especially after what Eugene kind of saw, like, just like everyone else, kind of see how things work around here. Now I think about it, I'm going back to it, I can't remember. Was that with Daryl, or was that? No, that wasn't with Daryl. That was when a couple episodes back, when Carl was there. I think that's what happened. No, was it? I don't remember. No, I definitely think, yeah, that was definitely with Carl. I forgot. Never mind. That was definitely when Carl went there. So I was mixing stuff up in my head. Sorry. But it's really not that important, but still, I just chronologically had to get that right in my head. But then they basically call Eugene a coward. It's like, oh, the fact is you can't do this. It's just because he's scared, because it's a situation where it's like, he tries to justify. He's like, yeah. He's like, didn't Negan kill some of your friends? And he's like, yeah. Well, granted, we did kill like 30 or so of his people. It's kind of, like I say, it's a very interesting situation because, like, the fact is, even Abraham, like, at first was like, oh, you're just a coward. Rosita was calling him a coward. But then even, like, eventually it was kind of a situation where they're like, no, we respect you. Well, Rosita called him a coward because it's like, oh, you're making his bullet and everything. And then at the same time, it's also like, but, eventually Abraham was like, no, you're a good man. You're not a coward. You've shown yourself to be kind of a warrior. Because Eugene had his moments where it's like, yeah, he was afraid. There was like, what was that situation? Was that last? I think that was no, that might have been it was season 5. That's what I'm thinking of. The whole situation. Was it Tara had gotten hurt, and Eugene's kind of a scaredy cat, right? But he picked her up and he got her out of there. It was during that whole situation with Glenn and those other 2. One of what's her name? Diana, like the leader of Alexandria, one of her sons, I think. Because basically he was kind of taking people out there and basically kind of sacrificing them, like getting them killed, because it's like, because they were kind of scared themselves and they put people in situations that ended up getting them killed. Nevertheless, it was a situation where I think it wasn't it like Tara got hurt and then he actually took action. So it's like he has moments of bravery, but like once again, it's like after he was there, he witnessed what Negan did. Like, he's one of the few people that knows just how scary Negan is and just how much of his might is. And I guess in Eugene's mind, it's kind of like, no, I'm taking my time, being smart as I am, I'm weighing the possibilities. And it's like being with Negan is a lot better than, being dead, essentially. Which, obviously, Sherry would kind of disagree, but I'll kind of get to that in a second. But it's like, I don't know, you kind of be like, oh man, why you have to side with Negan? Especially when it came, he's like, so what's before he can even finish, you have Eugene be like, I'm Negan. I've always been Negan. I just never knew it until I met you. It's just like, he faltered hard, dude. Because no one else has been, like, even Daryl was like, he's like, so what's your name? And it was like, Daryl, and he never backed down. Like I say, it's a situation like you want to give Eugene crap, but at the same time, it's like, if I were in that situation, I'd cater too. I mean, because it's like you want to be useful, because if you're useful, you live. If you're not useful, you die. But kind of going back to it, this whole situation with Sherry, because that was kind of the thing too. I threw it out there before. I was like, so is it going to be Dwight or his wife? But the moment Dwight sees that Daryl's gone and sees the whole Fat Joey situation, and then it's just like, oh crap, and then he rushes and figures it out. Especially when he sees the note and everything. I'm like, his ex-wife Sherry's the one that did it. He kind of got the crap beaten on him because Negan was like, I figured, because Negan was kind of like, out of anyone, I figured it would either because Negan suspected him, or at the very least it's because Daryl is Dwight's responsibility, because it was his job to break Daryl, but he never did. So it's like, oh, so, did you switch stripes on me? He's like, no, I'm Negan. So Negan's like, okay, so find Sherry and bring her back. So basically she can be punished for what she did. Which it really was Sherry, because he eventually he went to a place where they would normally meet up. I can only assume, because there was a picture of them there, I can only assume it's the house that him, Sherry, and her sister Tina all lived in prior to, at least in the early, maybe that's where they originally lived, but then, I don't know, because we never really got to see how far that is from the compound, so whether he really went far away or not. But at the very least, it seemed like it might be the house that they were in before Negan's people kind of tracked them down. She's not there. She actually left a note. And it's kind of sad, because there was a part of the note basically saying, like, she's not even sure that he's going to actually find this note, because she's like, I'm not even sure you're actually going to come here. She brings up the fact is that Dwight actually has a bit of a bad memory, and the fact is that it actually used to frustrate him because his memory was so bad. He'd forget stuff. But now she's like, I don't even know if you're going to find this note or not. I'm sure she wrote it just in case, but even she wasn't 100% sure he'd find it, which is a little sad. But which in itself, it's a beautiful yet sad thing, because it's like, it's sad because obviously, she wrote it and he actually did come, even though she's not 100%. She hoped, but she probably wasn't 100% sure if he would. And she couldn't wait around, because it's like, well, she knows eventually Negan will become looking for her, so she had to leave as soon as possible. But also because it's like, it's beautiful in a sense of like, because it's such, you can kind of tell it was important to Dwight, because even if he does have bad memories, he remembered it. Especially because in part of the note is basically like, hey, you talk about if we ever got separated, you come back here with beer. Basically, he pulled out some beer and like some food after he was done reading the letter, kind of showing the fact is that he did remember that, because she was thinking like, oh, maybe that's something else you forgot too. And what I thought was kind of interesting is the fact is that she apologized to him, because in her mind, she's like, it's my fault that you're the way you are, because I saved your life by marrying Negan. That's the reason why Dwight got away with just a scar on his face, obviously. But it's like, she thought she was doing him a good thing, because it's like, at least this way he could live. But for her, it's like, no, I probably did. She's like, I did worse, because it's like, that's not living. It's like, it's like, oh, being with Negan is better than being dead. She's like, no, it's not. Actually, being with Negan is like, the whole situation that they're under is like even worse than death. It's like death would be a rescue from that whole situation. There was even that dude that Dwight was supposed to bring back, and he ended up killing, because the guy was like, I'd rather die than go back. Just kind of showing you the severity of the situation. And then it came down to like, so like, that basically, in her mind, she's probably like, I would have been better off letting Negan kill you. At least this way you wouldn't have changed. It's like, because like, when she saw Daryl, the fact is that, the way he was, it's because like, she saw who Dwight used to be, and she sees that like the man that she once knew is no longer going. In her mind, it's like, I'm the one that did that to you. So I'm sorry. And the fact is that she hopes that one day he gets away from all of this. And she's like, she even says like, I don't know if I will actually survive this or not, like survive on my own. But even if I don't, it's like much better. So I am curious. Someone was crossing my mind. I kind of figured it might not get covered in the episode. Maybe it'd be something we see in the future. But it's like, what if Daryl, because Daryl is kind of making his way back to Alexandria on foot. What if he ends up coming across Sherry? That's going to be very interesting because like a lot of stuff happened because like their whole situation happened because they went back to Negan. It's like, plus they stole from, him, stole his bike, stole his crossbow, and he's like, you don't have to do this, and they did it anyway. It's like, they went back to Negan, because I guess in their mind, they're like, yeah, because they were afraid Negan would eventually find him, but it's like, you see Sherry kind of running off her own, so I guess, like, after, because I think things were bad before, but now things have turned even worse since coming back. And it's like, I guess in their mind, because at that point in time, at least she'd had the mindset of like, oh no, being dead, it's like, at least this way we get to live or something like that. Negan will forgive us maybe, and we can live. It's kind of what she thought. And I'm sure now looking back, she's like, she wishes she never did. I mean, because granted, like, it's all about the medicine for her sister. Her sister ended up dying anyway. So, like, that's why they went back. Because it's like, well, the whole point of us coming out here is gone. So, it's like everything we did was kind of useless. So, it's like, might as well go back to where we know we'll survive. Because on our own, there's no guarantee we would. So, I'm sure even, going even that far back, it's like, I wish we had never come back. That was kind of a regret. She even apologized to Daryl, being like, yeah, I'm sorry that, we did that because it was a mistake. So I'm very curious to see if that ends up happening. But we also have the interesting thing about the fact is that Dwight blamed the dog, being like, left a note, being like tore a piece of Sherry's note and placed it on him to make it. And then he lies to Negan. Is like, yeah, the person like, oh yeah, Sherry admitted it to me. I don't want her, like, I guess for one, if Negan, because it's probably not enough to make Negan think like she's dead. He needed someone else to take the fall to someone back. Like that way Negan won't kind of cast it out of his mind to a certain extent. But it's like, I think it's mainly because of what the doctor said. Basically like, oh, people like Sherry don't survive long. The fact is, it's a good thing that she's dead because it's like, we don't need weak-willed people around here. It's like, it's like, yo, me and you, we get how things work around here. It's like, we kind of adjusted to the system. She didn't. She was too kind-hearted. She was too sympathetic when it came, almost like saying she's so weak-willed, I'm guessing is kind of the way he was phrasing it. So I'm thinking that pissed Dwight off, and that's the reason why he did that. I mean, that's only an assumption. Maybe he just needed a fall guy, and he just figured the doc would make a good fall guy anyway, but I don't know. What really caught me by surprise, I was like he was like, okay, now he sets up the iron and everything, and the doctor's like, no, Dwight's lying and everything. He's like, why would Dwight lie? Because he knows Dwight is a good soldier. For one, he knows that, what would he get out of this? Because he knows if Sherry isn't dead and I end up finding her, it's just going to come back to bite him in the ass. So I was like, why would he lie? And then he's like, so admit what you did and I'll let you go. And he's like, okay, I'm sorry, I did it. It won't happen again. He's like, and he drops the iron. He's like, see? Told you. No, told you. All you had to do was say sorry. Grabs him, throws him in the furnace. Did not see that come. Because I was literally, especially because he hit him with Lucille. I was like, you're going to bash his brains in. Once again, they keep setting out. I'm halfway flinching. Like, oh, it's about to happen. Even when he walks into Eugene's room later on, it's like, you still, especially because at that point in time, I was like, they ratted you out. They lied and said you had sex with him or something. Like, I think part of me's like thought like that, but then it's like, I think also the girls don't want to admit it too, because like, I think what Eugene said was some truth to it. It's like, basically they're replaceable. Eugene's not, because he can make ammo and he's a smart dude. So Negan would be a little more likely to believe him, especially because because Eugene is a quote unquote coward, that he knows like Negan is like, he would never lie to me. He's not good enough of a liar because he's too scared of me to lie. Because he's so much of a coward, basically, I'm sure in Negan's eyes, it's kind of like, oh, he's such a coward, he's going to want to stay with me willingly, so he's always going to try to stay on my good side. But, It's like that's like I've said it up multiple times. I think that's what the point of Lucille is. It's a constant fear of like, oh, he's going to do this to you. It's like Lucille in his hands is always a fear that he's going to start bashing people's brains in. But like I said, maybe we will go the rest of this season him never doing it again. He has yet to actually bash anyone. The last person he killed with Lucille, to our knowledge, is Glenn. Granted, there might have been some off-screen deaths of people he killed like that too. I can't. No. You see what I mean? But like I said, that might also come from the fact is that maybe The Walking Dead, maybe they cut around that. Maybe they changed some of the stuff because, like I said, the show originally caught a lot of flack for that because people are like, that's too freaking violent. So maybe that's why they're kind of like, obviously, The Walking Dead's always been violent. That's why I'm like, yeah, some people's argument has always been like, oh, that doesn't, the show's always been extremely violent. So like, why are you acting like, I mean, I think it's one difference now because it's one human to another, which, like I said, it's semantics, I guess, because I mean, like I said, there's always been brutal deaths. I don't know if I brought this up before, but definitely I might have. So I'm most likely repeating myself. So I apologize. It's like Noah. Noah, he's the actor who played Noah was the actor from Everybody Hates Chris who played Chris. Him, like I feel like he's easily got one of the hardest deaths prior to like Abraham and Glenn. Glenn's literally at the top, but definitely like he got it the hardest, dude. Like unnecessarily hard, dude. It's like holy crap. Now I'm sitting here thinking about I don't think I brought that up before, but nevertheless, I don't think it's that big of a deal to reiterate it here. But nevertheless, so maybe they kind of cut back on it, like oh yeah, if Negan's got to kill anybody, let's kind of find slightly more conventional means that people are slightly more okay with, like stabbings and stuff. I don't know. Nevertheless, so now you have Dwight and Eugene kind of readjusting to the new scene. Dwight's kind of readjusting, as kind of cementing himself as like, hey, the fact that Sherry's no longer here, so it's like get rid of that heart and be cold-hearted, because like especially because Daryl, because more so the reason why she let Daryl go also is because she saw that Daryl was kind of making him that way a little bit, because he was very reluctant, because probably like because he saw Daryl never backing down, I guess, and it's almost inspiring, but it's like it probably left him conflicted, and she got rid of Daryl, so it would be like, no, this way you're no longer conflicted. Hopefully you'll leave, but at least this way you won't have to worry about kind of your heart holding you back. So it seems like that's what he's kind of doing, and you have Eugene even kind of, like I said, assimilating. Because there's been two moments. Like one, like when he originally gave that idea to Negan and he was walking away, he had a smirk across his face. And then the lady was like, hey, get back in the line, idiot. And then he's like, do you know who I am? I am kind of the new engineer, blah, 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 for Negan. That means I report directly to Negan and you report to my ass. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know you're, a lot of new faces. And he starts taking random crap from her and stuff like that, kind of, readjusting, because it's like, I'm sure for him, this is the first time he's ever felt strong, because he feels important, needed. I mean, I don't think he ever really felt that way, because I'm sure in some cases, he always felt like a burden. But even when the group found out the truth about him, he stayed around because he did kind of still prove himself on occasion. So I don't know. It's kind of interesting. I'm curious what Rosita would say if she found out Eugene was kind of being treated like a king, that he's kind of becoming assimilating. Because it was even interesting too, because you could see the way like Eugene was looking at Dwight. He knows that Dwight lied. He even kind of calls it out when he talks to the girls, of being like, yeah. Even he's like, yeah, I know that Negan won't believe me, because he definitely believed Dwight about the doctor, which means he saw through it. So it was a very good episode. It was like, because Eugene's a character we've never really delved into too much, and it's like seeing him under these new circumstances and seeing him kind of be this person. I'm very curious to see what it means going forward, because obviously you had the whole situation where people were doubting Gabriel, but it seems like he was still like 100% dedicated to them. And it's like, part of me is wondering, is Eugene playing the long game, or did he just, kind of go like, hey, survival of the fittest kind of situation, where it's just kind of like, well, if you want to survive, you got to be smart and you got to know when to just give up. And this is a situation where you just give up and help out. It's like, oh, are you be on the winning side or not? Because he doesn't know about the fact is that Rick is willing to fight back. And even if he did, and if he knew about the whole circumstances, Alexandria, Hilltop, Kingdom, and this new group they found out last episode, like if he did know about that, would he be more willing to be like, hey, let's, no, I'm gonna pretend like I'm working with Negan and then like secretly help them out or whatever? I don't know. I'm very curious to see where that would go. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.